Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my biggest winter market of the year. At least that's what I think it will be. I'm getting ready to head out of the studio for this weekend. We have a 3-day long Christmas market coming up this weekend. It's currently Friday. The market starts today at 2 in the afternoon. It's currently the morning time and I'm getting ready to pack everything up. It's an indoor market this time, which is really good after last weekend, which was so cold, and it's still pretty frosty outside, so I'm really glad that I get to set up in a cozy, warm environment this weekend, and then I can actually leave my stuff there because I will be back again next weekend for weekend 2 of this market, so that is why it's quite a big Christmas market for me. I was busy all week prepping lots of plushies and candles, as you can see, and currently I will still need to finish up some of them, so that is what I will be doing before we pack the car and leave for the venue of this weekend. I'm really excited. I've never been a vendor at this venue, but I've been to the market as a visitor before and it was super busy when I was there, so we shall see what happens this weekend. I will of course take you guys along for the ride and check in with you guys when I can. So the next time you will probably see me is at setup.
Okay, just a little check-in. We're at the market. I'm completely set up. It's super quiet in here, so that is why I'm speaking so quietly. The vibes of this market are a little off right now. I will explain a little more why I feel like a little off at this market so far. It's not a lot of handmade booths, just a couple, and a lot of more like decorative, little boutique style, but like definitely not handmade booths, so we will see how that works out for me. Also, the setup was kind of difficult because we are sharing a stall and it was all kind of different than it was told to me before. So we will see. The venue is beautiful, but the vibes are a little difficult. So we will see. We only have 6 hours of market today. So it's from 2 to 8 today. And then tomorrow I will actually not be there. So tomorrow my mom will take over for me and do the market day, because I already have some other plans, like tickets to an event. So I can't be here. So we won't have any footage for tomorrow. But today and Sunday will hopefully make up for that. So we shall see.
are all but gone. Those kids are making lists for Santa. You see those smiles beaming, they outshine the sun. Whoa, the freshly fallen.
Ja, das wäre nett. Eine Frage, was ist das für ein Buch? Das ist ein Buch Holz. Das funktioniert eigentlich schon ganz anders aus, aber funktioniert eigentlich genauso wie ein normaler Docht. Kann ein bisschen dauern beim ersten Mal beim Anzünden. Und wenn man den Abtrennen okay. Also das ist nicht oder so. Nee, der brennt ganz ruhig. Eigentlich wie ein normaler Docht, nur der macht der Original. Okay. So ein bisschen. Dann packe ich es ein. Dankeschön. In eine Tüte dazu? Nee, das tue ich in die Tüte. Das hat Teddybär mit einem Froschhut. Also Froschkapuze.
Als Froschspektakel.
Genau, er ist schon ein bisschen der Zeit voraus, der ist schon bei Fasching angekommen. Hallo. Gerne. Ich packe sie euch ein bisschen ein, damit ihr gut nach Hause kommt. Braucht ihr auch eine Tüte dazu? Ja. Du hast schon entdeckt, was die können, oder? Genau wieder so die richtige Position. Dann gibt es schon ganz viele von den Oberteilen, von den Gesichtern schon gemacht und jetzt mache ich die Körper noch fertig. Damit ich dann morgen ein paar lilane Pinguine auch habe, weißt du? Die können das auch wie die Tannenbäume. Drei bei euch? Ja. Braucht ihr da eine Tüte dazu? Na klar, ja.
Man klappt der Heiz oder kurz für nichts geklappt.
Genau, das sind 18 bei euch insgesamt. Mit der Karte? Ja. Genau, wunderbar. Dann vielen Dank euch. Spaß damit. Schönen Abend. Hi friends, it's now Sunday, so it's market day 3. As I said, I wasn't at the venue myself yesterday. I had tickets to another event and I couldn't attend this market. So my mom took over for me and she did a really good job at selling my things and talking to customers, chatting with them, wrapping my products. So I'm super grateful that she took over for me yesterday. But today I am heading back out to my booth and I wanted to check in with you guys and talk a little bit more about this market before we go back for today, because I feel like I haven't really spoken to you that much in this video and I really wanted to give you like some more insight, some more background info about this market. So I have never done this market before. It's my first time attending this market as a vendor. I've been to this market as a customer before a couple of years ago. And yeah, I really liked it back then, and that is why I applied to be a vendor at this market. And ever since then, I do have to say that the types of booths have changed a little bit. It's way less handmade vibes than the last time I was there. So it's a lot more, I think I already told you, like more like boutique style, very curated types of items, very like decorative types of items, but not handmade, which honestly, I don't really love as a Christmas market. I would prefer to have more actually handmade booths at this venue. But I think so far the sales have been fine and I'm actually pretty happy with it. I already made back my booth fee for all 6 days, so that's always good. I made that back on the first day and then some even on the first day. So that's pretty good, but still, I don't really know. The vibes are just a little off still at this market. You saw how I set up my booth at this venue, and the thing was that the organizer called me after I applied to be a vendor at this market, and she said they only had one new spot open for this year and she really wanted my booth to be that one spot. So that felt pretty cool that out of all of the applications, my booth was the one that was chosen to be a new vendor at this market. And also, like, I think it's a good thing that a lot of vendors keep coming back to this market, even though they have like very different types of items than I offer in my booth. I think it's still a good thing when vendors decide to come back to a venue year after year. So I was really excited to be accepted into this market. She then told me that the only booth that she was reassigning this year was a shared booth, which I don't really mind usually. I love vending with other small business owners and getting to know them. But I think the thing that we got really unlucky with is that our booth is not a corner booth. So there's actually quite a lot of corner booths at this venue, but ours isn't one, which I think is very unlucky when having a shared booth, because as you saw, the booth is kind of very like long to the back. It's like 4 meters long. So that's very, very long, but it gets very narrow with 2 different booths in one. So neither of us really has any space. And then we also have quite a lot of empty space at the back of the booth, because nobody will walk 4 meters into your booth to look at your items. So we both are kind of like towards the front. So that ended up happening. And I think we can't really use the space to its fullest potential as a shared booth. I really wish that we had gotten a corner booth at this venue, but it is what it is. I also don't really have a space like to be. I usually like to be behind my table crocheting and just like being there, like kind of overhearing what people are saying and maybe chiming in if I feel like they want some interaction, or not chiming in if I feel like they don't want interaction. And I can't really do that with my setup right now. I kind of have to walk around my table and like attend the customers, and that feels kind of scary. I usually don't like to do that. I like to keep like a little more back and let people do their thing, and that's not really possible right now at this venue with the way that we had to set up. So yeah, it feels kind of uncomfortable and I really have to step out of my comfort zone, but people have been really great. They have actually been kind of loving the interactions. I have like kind of a different crowd than usual at this market. Usually my target audience with my products is kind of like people my age or like a little younger, a little older. And I feel like usually our age group doesn't really want to be talked to. But at this venue, there's actually quite a lot of older people attending and they have been loving my candles. So I actually have to restock a couple of them. I headed over here to finish them up. I have some more dust covers printed and we'll put them on the candles just now and take them to the venue today. But yeah, so that has still been pretty good and they actually like to be talked to. So that's something new for me, very uncomfortable still with that, but I'm trying to get things figured out and I'm really hoping that today is honestly the best day of the weekend. Usually Sundays are the best days for my markets, so we shall see if it's the best day or not. And then we also still have next weekend, which will be a separate video though. So let me pack up my candles that I want to take today. I just have a couple laying around that I finished, but I couldn't take because I didn't have the dust covers made. So that is the plan for now. And then I will head out to the venue. I actually really have to leave. So yeah, I will see you guys at the venue.
Das ist gehackt. Genau, ich bin auch mal wieder dabei. Das ist so eine ganz flauschige Rolle. Genau. Deswegen schauen die so plüschig aus. Ja. Genau. Genau. Ist eigentlich immer im Preis noch? Ja. Ja. Sieht man erst gar nicht, ne? Nee. Die Rolle. Nee, gehackt. Das wird ein Dino. Ich hatte gestern so Langhals-Dinos. Okay. Und die sind jetzt alle weg. Ja. Die waren sehr beliebt und dann konnte ich gleich wieder nachproduzieren. Jetzt habe ich einen schon wieder gemacht. Aber ich mache die zu Hause fertig. Ich habe ja dann die Augen und sowas zu machen zu Hause. Aber dann kann ich die schon mal vorbereiten. Dann habe ich nämlich nächste Woche wieder welche da. Ja. Genau. Da war meine Frage. Ich habe jetzt noch welche gesehen, schwarze Gänge.
Okay, it's now 7:30, so the market is almost over. This first weekend was actually super good, so today was crazy. And yeah, I will of course check in with you guys once I know more of the numbers and do a breakdown for you. But let's just say I really have so much to do. I only have 4 days between this weekend and when this market will happen again next Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday as well. So crazy.
Hi friends, I'm now back from the market as you can tell, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a recap of this past weekend. I did leave most of my setup there because, as I said before in this video, I will actually be back there for another weekend, like this coming weekend. So I only have 4 days in between the 2 weekends to prep for the second part of this market. So that is kind of challenging right now, but I still wanted to give you a recap of how weekend 1 at this market went. So this obviously was a Christmas market. It's in this really beautiful venue. As you saw, it's like a 200-year-old building that this is held in, and it's such a beautiful place. And I've been to this market a couple times as a visitor before, and I always really liked this market. The only time I wasn't there was last year, so I missed that because I had markets every single weekend in December, so I didn't really have the time to check out this market last year. And I already applied as a vendor for this market last year, but I got rejected because they were already full. But this time around I was actually the only new vendor at this market, so my booth was the only one that got like filled with a new vendor. Everybody else had been there at least last year or even lots of years before, as a lot of them have been doing this market for quite a long time. So I'm kind of a newbie in between all of these very seasoned vendors, and I think that's both a good and a not so good thing. So first of all, what I didn't really realize when I was at this market as a visitor before, because that was before I actually started my own business, is that actually quite a lot of the people attending this market is not like really my target group. So it's a lot of like more older people, not like necessarily like super old, but less families and lots of more like well off people, which makes them a very shopping enthusiastic crowd, but not necessarily for my types of items. So I didn't really realize that before I applied to this market. I still think I did pretty well at this event, but the booth layout, I've already complained about that as well. So that is kind of difficult. I really wish that like these shared booths, there's a couple around, that all of us booths that are like sharing a space with another vendor would have gotten like corner booths, because that's like a very big disadvantage I think at this market. And that's probably also why I felt super uncomfortable at this market, is because I already told you that as well. I had to step around my table and kind of like really engage with the customers, walk up to them and talk to them, and that usually feels very scary, and it's like a bigger gamble than standing behind your table and kind of like chiming into the conversation if you feel like it's right. It's like a very much bigger commitment to step around the table and approach a customer. And personally, as a customer, I don't really like to be approached like that, so it kind of felt very uncomfortable that I had to do that at this market, to like kind of engage with the people. I couldn't really like greet them as usually, so I don't really love that. I think it would have been a completely different story if I had either my own booth, like a smaller booth upstairs. They have lots of smaller booths because downstairs the booths are pretty huge, so that would be a little too big for me by myself. But upstairs they have like smaller booths, so either have one of those for myself or have like a corner booth, so that my setup could have been like out in a way where people could have still walked up to my booth and wouldn't have to step into my booth like they have to do with my current setup. So that's kind of very different. I still don't want to complain, so let me move on to the next part of this recap. So this market was 3 days long, as you know. On Friday it was only like 6 hours, and then Saturday and Sunday it was 8 hours each. And on Friday I honestly was a little worried after the first day that this would not be a really good market, but then again the market started on Friday at 2, so lots of people, especially my target audience, is still at work or in school. So on Friday mostly lots of older and like retired people were walking around this market, and they're not like really my audience. I did sell quite a lot of candles on Friday compared to my plushies, so that kind of switched up during Saturday and Sunday, when more families and younger people came out to browse the market. So that was very interesting to me. And yeah, Saturday I wasn't actually there at the booth. As you know, I had tickets to a different event, and my mom and then also my brother came and took over the booth, and they did super great. So they were really awesome at attending the booth and talking to customers. They even had a store owner approach them, and she really wants to have my candles in her store. So I actually called her today, and we will be doing that starting January. So I am super excited that I have my first wholesale customer from this market. So that is super exciting, and yeah, I'm really grateful that my mom and my brother took over and yeah, did a really good job at working my booth. And honestly, that was like so refreshing not to have a market every single day. So I honestly wish it was the same again next weekend. And then on Sunday, I was back at the booth, and Sunday was, of course, the best day as usually for my markets. Sunday is always like the busiest market day of them all. So let's get into some more of the numbers of this market, I guess. So on Friday, as I said, it was the slowest day, but I still had 23 orders on Friday, and I sold 28 items for a total of 506 euros, which means that by the end of Friday, I had already made back my booth fee. I just looked it up again, and the booth fee for all 6 days was 357 euros. So I had already made that back at the end of Friday, which is always like really good and kind of relaxes me a little bit, because after that I was sure that I was going to make a profit from this market. So that's pretty good. And then on Saturday, I didn't sell anything, but my mom and brother sold 57 items in 43 orders, and they made 847 euros. So they did super well. And then on Sunday, as I said, it was the busiest day. I had 51 orders, and I sold 73 items for a total of 1,035 euros. So pretty good market day there. So the grand total of weekend one of this market was 2,388 euros, which is pretty good for a market like this. So I'm super grateful that I got the chance to be at this market this year, or I'm still getting the chance because the market is only halfway over by the time you're watching this video. So yeah, a pretty good weekend one of this market. I also did a little bit of a breakdown of how well each of my types of items did, because that's always kind of interesting, and that actually switches up quite a lot throughout the markets. So at my smaller markets, my street fairs and all of those, my plushies are always like such a bestseller, and I usually only sell a couple of candles. But at the bigger, like more handmade markets, it kind of switches up, and my plushies are still popular, but usually my bestseller are my candles at these markets. So that kind of ended up happening at this market again, and I think a lot of that had to do with the types of people that attended this market. So I made a total of 1,233 euros off of my candles. In plushies, I made 1,135 euros. Something else that happened is I didn't sell a singular one of my wristlets, so I think that's a first. I don't really know what happened there. I had them, I think, displayed pretty prominently in my booth, but nobody ended up picking one up. But what I did sell was some of my scrunchies. So I've had these for a while. I bulk made like 100 of these at the beginning of the year, and every time I have a little bit of space at my booth, I like to display them, and I usually don't really sell any, but sometimes I sell like one or two. But this time around I ended up selling 4 of them. So I also made 20 euros in scrunchies, which is pretty good. I still have a ton of those left, so that always feels pretty good to sell a couple of those. And I'm actually pretty glad that my candles were such a good seller at this market, because if it was like my street fairs and my plushies would have been like super popular and I wouldn't have sold a lot of candles, I really would have a problem with restocking plushies in only 4 days. But I think like this, I actually have a pretty good plushie stock left. So that feels pretty good. I still really need to make a lot of plushies because some of these were really good sellers this weekend. So I really need to replenish a couple of types of plushies and then a ton of candles. So that will be my next week. But let me also give you the 5 best-selling plushies, because I know that a lot of you are interested in that. So let me like scoot over just a little bit so I can put up some pictures here, and we finally have some different bestsellers this week than we've been having for like I feel like all of the markets in the second half of this year. So a lot of them are still the same though. So we have in number 4 we have 2 plushies, and we sold 6 of each of those. So we have my mallard ducks, which I sell for 10 euros each, and I restocked quite a lot of them, so I'm really glad I did that because I still have a couple of them left because of that. And then my baby whales I sold 6 of as well for 6 euros each, and I really need to restock those. I only have, I think it's like 10 or so left, and that's nowhere near enough. And then in number 3 we have a plushie that hasn't been on my best selling list in a couple of months, I think. I have my cats in number 3. I sold 10 of them for 14 euros each, and I only have 3 of them left, so they haven't been in my bestsellers for quite a while, but I've always sold like a couple of them. So I only have 3 left, and I really need to restock those for the next week. Then in number 2 is another popular plushie over the course of the past couple of markets. We have my baby penguins. I sold 12 of them for 6 euros each as well. I still have a couple, like a good amount left, because I prepped so many before the season. So that was a good choice, I think, on my part to make so many for this season. So 12 of them sold. And then in number 1, of course, we have my baby octos yet again. I sold 14 of them for 6 euros each as well. So they are just always popular and people really love them. So I always keep restocking them. They're pretty easy to make. So I'm actually really glad that they're always my best seller. So yeah, those are the numbers of weekend 1 of this market. I really need to prep quite a lot of stuff in the couple of days that I have before weekend 2 starts. So I will now get back to that, and I will of course take you guys along for weekend 2 as well. So stay tuned for that, and thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way until the end, and I will see you guys again next week for another video. So until then, bye.